Now another restoration project and the third building that you can vote for this week. It's here on the edge of Snowdonia. In the Nantlle Valley in Gwynedd. About 10 miles south of Carmarthen. Nantlle is the smallest of the villages we're looking at this week. It has no shops, no pub, but it does have a school and a fabulous view of Mount Snowdon. And it is, of course, quite beautiful. But in the 1800s, all this was a place of industry. In fact, Nantlle wouldn't really exist at all if it wasn't for what happened in the hills above the village. In the boom time, thousands were employed in these valleys, and they had as significant an effect here in North Wales as coal and steel did in the south. It was a sort of Celtic Klondike, with private speculators and huge commercial quarries all trying to extract grey gold from the mountainside. Now, what they were looking for was this stuff, slate. And we're all over North Wales. You can see the results of that extraction. They pulled out millions and millions of tons searching for a good square block which they could then split and make into roofing slates. And in the process, they sort of turned mountains inside out and created an entirely new landscape, which is really, really quite beautiful. Welsh slate was exported all over the world from small ports around the coast of North Wales, often connected to the quarries by narrow-gauge railways. And as the demand for slate grew, it became all the more industrialised and larger in scale. And of course, away from the rock face, a whole army of men came here to live and to work the stuff, to split and dress and cut the slate, but also to build, operate and maintain these winches and railways which got the stuff down off the mountainside. And here, on top of a huge pile of slate waste directly above the village, is the centre of all that industry. And it's the third and final set of buildings that you can vote for this week. It's the Orsedd Quarry workshops that serve the works at Nantlle. Built over a period of 50 years, by the end of the 1800s they formed part of a small village of buildings, all there to service the slate workings. Barracks, an office, stalls and a sick bay. At the heart of the complex lies the engineering workshops that built, repaired and maintained the whole site. But since the early 70s they've been unused and have fallen a victim to the elements. The villagers now want to save these buildings and bring them back to life, but they need your help. For Marianne and Ptolemy, it's an unusual location to explore, and they have little idea what the buildings were actually used for.
God, look at this place! Unbelievable.
The more you look, the more you realise how vast the site is, because it goes right the way to that far valley, these piles. It's almost as if this work has carried, sort of morphomised and moved across the landscape, digging its way across. And you kind of reach this point here where they're sort of digging away. You know, there's a vast area, isn't it? We're talking about square miles here.
They start with some of the buildings that surround the workshops.
Look, that was slate hung, the outside of this building.
Oh, yeah.
So not only were they willing to build walls with it, they also sort of hang it with slate, which presumably is a damp measure. Now, just on this building, what's so wonderful is the size of the slates. Look how huge the lower course of slates are.
Enormous,
really
aren't they?
massive slates, and the way they diminish up to the top. That's how slating used to be. It's yet another example of how a material, when it's handcrafted, has a real quality to it, and when it's machine-made, it sort of slightly loses it, really.
I mean, this is an earlier roof, isn't it, by the looks of things?
It's
An
nice,
earlier building.
and the quality of this masonry is superb, because there's hardly any mortar here at all. I mean, it's literally, the slates are bashed together, and where you've got a gap, you're putting them in slithers, you know, and it's the perfect material to get sort of levels and bits of dabs of mortar here and there just to fill it up. But it's a fantastic, robust and very beautiful, I think, material. I think we should revive the idea of building with this material. I think it's very beautiful.
To increase output and satisfy the demand for roofing slate, intricate haulage systems and steam locomotives were introduced to the quarry. The workshop was where all this machinery was maintained, and many new metal and wooden parts cut, turned and shaped. The place is now a mess, but in the foundry, the blacksmith's forge is still in place.
Look at that wonderful fern growing out of the top of it. The thing's rusting away in front of it, but the slate is just there, isn't it?
It's interesting that this the steam engine continue to run all of these shafts and these belt drives to operate things like this. Here you've got an enormous drill.
Rusted in position.
So this joinery shop would have been
servicing all the equipment.
Yeah. An absolute hive of activity, all of this going on.
And now all we hear is bird song. Strange. Nature reclaiming the mountain.
The workshops have lain dormant for over 35 years. But Kerwin Pryce Jones and Wally Williams are two locals who remember their time here fondly.
Well, I came here in, I think it was April 1953, yeah. Till I did 6 years. 59 I left. Yeah, 1959, yeah. But Kerwin was here longer than me.
Yeah, I can't remember what year I started. Oh,
yeah.
I started here 16.
Yeah.
Remember, is a turntable, was the turntable still there? Over there?
Oh, yeah. When they serviced the steam locals, getting serviced, was to bring along the track here onto the turntable, and then they used to swivel it around and bring it. There was a big pit down there, so they could get underneath or whatever, you know. Yeah. And the engineer's office was at the far end, in the corner. And all the machinery used to be along here, the lathes and the shapers, drills, to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have our snack in the smithy, by the smithies, you know. And we all sit around the fire, didn't we, Kerry?
Yeah.
On the bench.
Yeah.
Your old partners to sit there, the blacksmith, didn't he?
Yeah.
You, very rarely you would be allowed to sit there. We were on that bench most times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pity the tools are gone, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it could be replaced, couldn't it?
Can replace, yeah.
Yeah.
And pity the roof slates are missing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be done.
Yeah.
Although the slate industry was a giant on the world stage, it suffered slow and catastrophic decline in the early 1900s. Capital dried up, imports grew, and slate became more expensive than cheaper alternatives. The Pembrey Orsedd Quarry has been effectively mothballed by its owners. It's still working, but it now employs only one person full-time. And its main output is no longer roofing slate, but decorative garden gravel, much of it crushed from the slate waste.
I suppose what I didn't anticipate coming here was that this stone quarry would actually be so much of a place, and it would be so, really so beautiful, really. I mean, here we are, we're on a man-made plateau of presumably slate refuse, which has been levelled out to create this, what really feels like an old-fashioned sort of fortified settlement. And you look at this wall here, this wall is built apparently in the 1930s, and it looks like some long-lost ancient castle. There's something very primeval about it, very elemental. I think it's marvellous. I think it's a great inspiration.
After further exploration, what do Marianne and Ptolemy now make of these industrial buildings?
I think this is the most dramatic backdrop to any historic building I have ever seen. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's a holiday cottage view
It is.
from an industrial workplace.
Well, it would be very easy to convert these into holiday cottages, wouldn't it? You would be flooded with people wanting to stay here and admire that view, and so easy to sort of wipe away this industrial landscape. And yet, if you did, you would lose so much, because heritage isn't just about little stone cottages and thatched roofs. It's about the nuts and bolts that actually make up this wonderful country that we live in.
And particularly in the Welsh context, where in South Wales so many of the coal mines have been cleared away. I mean, I feel when you walk around here, you can really imagine what it was like working here, and it's your perfect model industrial hamlet, all sitting here with these piles of slate under these wonderful clouds and amidst this marvellous theatre of mountains.
The chairman of the trust that plans to get the wheels of industry turning in the workshops once again is David Gwynn. So what's the plan then? What's the plan for the buildings?
The plan for this building and for the buildings around is that they be converted into an engineering conservation school. We hope to manufacture or replicate or repair historic engineering items here using the skills that were being practiced here when the workshops closed down in the early 1970s, but also marrying them to modern things like computer-aided design. Could be talking about buses, cars, railway trains, or smaller and more everyday items. I'm thinking of street furniture, lampposts, things like that. Things that can actually add to the diversity of our towns and villages.
How much work needs to be done here?
Well, a fair amount. You can see for yourself that there's an awful lot of clearing of the floor that needs to be done. We need to put machinery in, we need to test the roofs and the cranes for safety, and we certainly need to sort out that corrugated iron building that's rattling so noisily in the background.
This is obviously a fantastic use of a building to take it back almost to its original purpose. But how much is all that going to cost?
Well, we reckon that the total cost will be somewhere in the region of 5 million. Now, we're hoping that £2 million can get the project up and running, that we can have an engineering conservation workshop and school here, providing training, accepting and completing contracts for £2 million.
This project isn't just about heritage. The real benefit for the village would be work, and in Nantlle, they need jobs. Coming down here, you can see that this is a village absolutely dominated by its industry. It lives in the shadow of it, and in fact, it was built by the Derbyshires, the owner of the quarry, to accommodate the workers. When the quarry stopped production in the 1970s, the village was devastated. People were forced to leave their homes in search of work. The shop and the post office disappeared, and the school still struggles against closure. Marianne Jones hopes that a refurbished workshop will offer her son and his generation a future in the village.
If we have something like this project that's hopefully going to happen in Orsedd, it'd be absolutely fantastic.
Why?
Well, it will regenerate the area, I think, especially for young people like my son. They more likely have a future then.
There isn't a lot of work around here in the village.
No, there's nothing.
If something like this doesn't come along, what sort of options are there then?
I think I had to go abroad or to the big cities and leave Gwynedd.
Break his mum's heart.
This is a very poor and deprived area. By European standards, it's one of the poorest. And these are magnificent buildings with a terrific story to tell. And investment in heritage here could make a real difference. So if you want to vote, this is what you do. Call 090 13 600 500 and nominate the Quarry Workshops at Nantlle as the building you want restored. That's 090 13 600 500. Those are the three contenders. Their supporters have been hard at work to try and win your votes. Let's see what they've been up to. In Pembrey, they're getting behind the house in the trees and holding a church concert to garner support to bring the ruined building back to life.
So local people have all joined in force, and you can see, I mean, it's practically full of community people, so just what we wanted really. Fantastic evening, summer evening, and a full church. Can't ask for more. I'm confident we're going to get loads of votes.
In Newborough, the villagers are using the centenary celebrations to get their message across that their institute just cannot be left to rot.
And so we're going to open the proceedings this afternoon with a song by the smaller kids.
Used to come along from school, and we used to come to the library.
It's really the hub of the village, you know. If you haven't got that, you haven't got a village.
Please lively show Institute.
In by far the smallest of our villages this week, the 200 residents of Nantlle don't really have the resources for a big party, but they do have plenty of enthusiasm for their plan to help breathe life and jobs back into the village. They've been running open days at the quarry to try to inspire more support and to get the workshops running again.
We hope to strengthen the local economy, strengthen the local culture, and provide a future for people.
See, now we're coming to the end of the programme. Only one thing I can say, everybody back this project along, no matter where you're from in the country, back it. It's worth doing. Yes.
Well, that's about it. Those are the 3 buildings from Wales, and they all have a very significant part to play in the fortunes of their community, and they all need your vote. That number is 090 13 600 500. Each call costs £1, but more than 77 pence of it goes to the burgeoning Restoration Fund. Of course, they're all going to have open days, and I really recommend going to see them. They're fascinating places. You can find out all the details on our website, bbc.co.uk/restoration. I'm going to be back next Friday with the results of that vote and with 3 more buildings, this time from Northern Ireland. Until then, good night.
And that's at 9 o'clock on Friday night. Digital satellite viewers can go behind the scenes of the programme. Press red and choose page 5670. Next tonight, Mastermind.